Hello, everyone. Sangat Astrology here. Thank you for stopping by. I know it's after the full moon in Aquarius, but I think that I can contribute with some ideas that you may be using or find interesting. So I've been very busy this last week. I didn't have time to stop and do this video, but I am now here with a lot of ideas to share with you. I hope you like my videos, and if you do so, please subscribe and click on the bell so you are notified every time I publish a video. Otherwise, I expect you to make comments and ask me questions about my ideas. Definitely, I don't have the whole truth and nothing but the truth. So if you have interesting ideas that you'd like to share with me, I will be happy to read them and answer. So thank you so much for, as I said, stopping by. I will share my screen now to talk about this full moon in Aquarius, a very electrical full moon affecting everyone. First of all, one of the clarifications that I need to do is that I do tropical astrology. It is based on the seasons, right? And I use whole sign house charts for these presentations. And not only that, but I use natural houses. Why? Because these ideas are applicable to the whole world. So the natural houses are representative of the whole world because the horizon is on the world axis, ascendant in Aries, as you will see, and descendant in Libra, and midheaven in Capricorn, and I see in Cancer. So this is the standard worldwide chart. It will be applicable to the whole humanity and the whole world. So first of all, I would like to point out that this is a very fixed chart. It has also some cardinal points, high points, but it is mainly a fixed energy chart, right? And it's also fire. So if you think about fixed fire, and you have an explosion because the fixed energy, it is stubborn, it is digging hills, and fire is inspiration and action, very much active. And is the summer, so, and it's a hot summer, and at least in the northern hemisphere, and we see the blood boiling, right? And that's one of the traits of this chart, so fixed fire, so the blood is boiling. So let's first talk about the moon in Aquarius. The moon in Aquarius, it is a detached moon. If we consider that this chart represents the people in general around the world, so the moon will represent the people. And the people in society, Aquarius, right? So it is pretty rebellious and counterculture. Aquarius, it is out there, you know, innovative and different, and counterculture. So the moon is the emotions as well, so they may rise due to ideologies, to different kinds of ideas, social ideas. So the emotions may be triggered by information as well, especially information going around online and social media and such, and information in the waves, like journalism as well, because Aquarius is society, a massive society, in relationships and communications. It's air, right? It's a fixed air. So you can expect stubborn ideas. There are being opposed, or there could be rebellion against those stubborn ideas, or it could be rebellious, stubborn ideas. So the emotions will be rising because of this friction with the rulers of Aquarius are Saturn, which is in the sign and retrograde. And Saturn retrograde acts more as Uranus, in the sense that it's more relaxed with restrictions. And you've seen, since Saturn turned retrograde, we've seen easy with restrictions and around the world. There were lifting regulations in society about wearing masks, and travel, for example, was easier. There were all kinds of restrictions lifted when and since Saturn turned retrograde. So it is more, it's not Uranus, but it's more similar to less restrictions, less obstacles, and more allowing, right? More forgiving, let's say, a forgiving Saturn. But make no mistake, Saturn will turn direct later on in the year, and we will be back again with the restrictions. So I didn't look at the date when Saturn will turn direct, but I know that in December, when Saturn and Uranus square exactly again, Uranus will be retrograde, which again, Uranus retrograde acts as more like Saturn, right? It's the Uranus retrograde restrains from freedom. It's more like introspective about the eccentricities and liberation and rebellion. So it's more introspective and retrospective as well. So it's more cautious about rebelling. And Saturn will be direct, which means that the restrictions and regulations and tough social Aquarius social matters will be back in place. And there's this friction between the two rulers of Aquarius of this full moon. So you can count on that friction be reflected by the emotions and by the people and by your sense of inner identity, let's say, because it is, of course, an opposition between the sun in Leo and the moon in Aquarius. So the sun is very strong in Leo, right? It is his home sign, and it is very fiery. And again, Mars is also in Leo, which makes it for, and Mars is the general, you know, the army general, enacting the sun's will. So there is a strong opposition to this full moon. However, this full moon is affected by this Saturn Uranus square, the friction. And what happens is that not only that, but we have several factors with this full moon. One of them is that it is in the first decan. And it is Aquarius, of course, very strong Aquarius sign and decan. Although the Egyptian term is ruled by Mercury, which is information, and it is also the mind and how people perceive the environment, the social environment. Mercury rules the mind and the way we relate to the environment. So this full moon is all about relating to the social environment. So not only that, but it is in the duad of Pisces. So Pisces is global, is universal, it is expansive. So it is very expansive. And both Pisces and Mercury are related to health as well and healing. So all these rebellions are associated with health, healthcare, and health issues. And I'm going to talk more about that later on. But let me also explain that this moon is out of bound. Let me show you here is minus 23.8 in declination. It's parallel to Pluto and counter parallel to Makemake. So not only is parallel to Pluto, which means that is conjunction by declination, but is also conjunction by a degree. It's out of sign conjunction, but it's just 6 degrees apart exactly. And so this moon is bringing this transformative energy and the power of the structures of institutional structures. So this moon has been impregnated, the emotional body of people have been impregnated by this institutional power that is imposing, things on society. So it is a double conjunction with Pluto by declination and by degree, zodiacal degree. So it is a moon that is afflicted, I would say, with intensity, very focused moon. It is this power of immersion in the feelings, right? The moon conjunct Pluto is super, super intense, and it has a focus, it has determination in power. So there could be, as I said, very stubborn ideas that trigger this emotional collective, and it is represented by social gatherings of dissenting ideas and information and people. They promote progressive ideas. And it is reflected by the protests. We've seen Cuba protests, Haiti protests. There have been protests in Japan. What else? Well, many places where they are protesting for healthcare, for safety, and we'll dive more about it in a minute. But there is this rebellious emotional state, rebellious mood, and the claim for freedom, the freedom to socialize, right? The freedom them to have the right to be in society free of constraints. And there are also humanitarian concerns as well, and shocking revelations and information that get society unstable. For example, it was acknowledged even by the CDC that there are breakthrough infections, meaning that the COVID-19 is also affecting people vaccinated. Well, we know from the start that the vaccines had a percentage of effectiveness, so they're not 100% effective. So it is expected that some unvaccinated people get sick. But there is a lot of there is a lot of information now coming even from the CDC about the spike protein of the virus. And the CDC says that it is toxic. It is recognized as toxic. And the CDC says that the protein when you receive an injection, the vaccine, it stays in the muscle that is punctured by other scientists saying that it doesn't stay there, that it goes to other places in the body. Well, there is confusion, and that is why I titled this video The Clear Chaotic Confusion, because it is clear, because it's full moon, right? And Aquarius is also the sign of science and scientific research and findings. So it is the very clear, right, a full moon on science, very clear confusion. And why I say that. So the moon is also in bisextile with Uranus. And interesting enough, Neptune is exactly sextile to both. So meaning that Neptune is in the midpoint of the moon and Uranus. And I was reading this book by this midpoints by Michael Mackenzie. It's Unleashing the Power of the Planets. It's called Midpoints. And what it says about the midpoint between the moon and Uranus, it says, the melding of these two energies helps nurture an inner rebelliousness against maternal or traditional family roles, or traditional people's roles, you know, in society, in this case, in Aquarius. It can denote emotional detachment and erratic restlessness. Which we have seen all over the world. So these motives will both agitate your emotions and your sensitive or nurturing side, yet they also bring insight and perception with an intuitive flair. These planets can represent an innovative wizard without emotional stability, but also one who has an inventive faculty that comes from working with uncommon ideas or materials. So this is the person whose innovative insights are so far removed from the center of mankind that the person may be truly labeled an eccentric genius. So there is an impersonal sensitivity to tradition, as well as personal insights or uncertainties that breathe non-conformity. So it is unusual feelings as well. And since Neptune is exactly at the midpoint of 51.5 degrees, it is exact, which is septile. So the moon is in the closing septile to Neptune, and Uranus is in the first septile to Neptune, right? The faster planet is aspecting the slower planet always. So the moon is coming to Neptune, and Uranus is driving away from Neptune. And what it says, the midpoint in Neptune equal moon Uranus, it says creativity and insight added to an already budding but unconventional genius. The use of questionable methods to produce results. Others who steal your ideas or products, and deceitful people who drain you of ideas or time. So this is what Michael Munchausen says. My interpretation in this case is that between the moon and Uranus, there is a lot of confusion. There is a chaos, a creative chaos, because septiles are creative, because Pisces, Neptune in Pisces is very creative and imaginative. So the midpoint of Neptune is also coinciding with the opposition to the natal USA chart, Neptune. It is exact, almost by the minute, to the opposition to the natal Neptune in the USA chart. It is a chaotic confusion between this rebellious moon and this electrical Uranus in Taurus that is provoking havoc in the economy, in nature, right? We have seen since Jupiter and Neptune are both in Pisces, we've seen the hugest floodings ever seen by our generation, and I think in several centuries. And so there is this threat to life, and I will talk more about that later. With this opposition, Neptune to natal Neptune in the US chart, you need to take information with a grain of salt and be in observation of reality, right? The moon in the Egyptian term of ruled by Mercury, and the Duad of Pisces. So I would say this moon is at the same time rebellious but confused about ideas, right? Rebellious because it's Uranus, the decan of Uranus, the Duad of Pisces, confused in ideas, Mercury. So it is confused, rebellious, that is confused about ideas. And what more representative of what we have seen? I mentioned before the protests in Japan. What are they protesting? They are protesting that the government has been reckless in with the Olympics, because they are not, they had people are opposed in general to the Olympics. And but at the same time, the contradiction that sometimes comes with Aquarius, the contradiction is that most people don't want to get vaccinated in Japan. Another surprising protest was in Cuba. In Cuba, conversely, they are protesting because they want vaccines and they won't be vaccinated. Oh, I also heard in some country in Africa, they are also protesting because they want to be vaccinated. And so they are against the government because the government is not supporting the health care they need. So where else there was a protest like contradictory like that? Oh, in Australia. So in Australia, it's again the opposite. They are protesting against the government because the government is imposing restrictions and imposing the protective measures. So people are protesting because they want freedom. So as you see, the protests for freedom are have very opposite and diverse reasons and motivations, which is this confusion that I am talking about. People are so confused that in general, globally speaking, people don't really know what is good and what is not. And there is this chaos created, Neptune and Pisces, right in the middle of the moon and Uranus. And remember, septiles are karmic and they are calling for a higher spiritual reality. Septiles are associated with the spiritual perspective of reality. So in France, for example, people are protesting the governmental measures to tighten on control, to tighten on restrictions, right? Pretty soon, they just got out in UK, for example, they just got out of isolation and lockdown not long enough, and now people see that the government may come back to those restrictions, and as well as in France. So we see that as I said, people is rebelling, but in general, there is this sense of confusion, deception, and disillusionment, right? Even with the vaccine, because people don't really know if it works, if it doesn't, why these new variants, etc. So, in addition to that, we have in this chart, we have Venus opposing Jupiter, and Venus in Virgo is valuing and caring for health, right? Mercury is finding solutions to problems, right? And especially to health problems. So this Venus is very concerned about how to solve this health problem. And Jupiter in Pisces talks about the widespread and the expansion of the virus, right? The virus could be represented by Pisces. Pisces is also the immune system, right? And the lack thereof as well. So Jupiter may be also expanding the lack of defenses in the body, increasing the vulnerability of people. So this, well, but that's not all. Let me tell you some more, because the moon, it is in conjunct, meaning quincunx, 150 degrees from Venus. And that also has the energy of Virgo. The quincunx has the energy of Virgo, because quincunx happen at 150 degrees from the zero. Venus will be the zero, and going 150, it will be the energy of Virgo. If we consider the initial point of the zero Aries, right, where Venus is, then the moon will be the energy of Virgo. And what is Virgo? Finding solutions, right? Finding solutions to health problems. So this moon is also reflecting, let's say, at odds with this Venus in Virgo, right? Venus is trying to win approval from people and from society who are questioning the worth of medical decisions and scientific data about healthcare. So see, this moon in Aquarius is at odds with Venus and Virgo, meaning that they don't see eye to eye. It's either one or the other. And sometimes in this case, I think it will be a stronger moon than Venus. However, this moon is also semi-sextile, which is considered kind of an inconjunct because they don't see eye to eye, right? The moon and Jupiter, they don't see eye to eye. And I talked about how Jupiter is the increased vulnerability of the immune system. And Jupiter also in semi-sextile with the moon represents efforts to try to buy people and society with generous things, you know. They're now offering to pay people to get vaccinated, or giving them rewards like going to, I don't know, places and things like that, big rewards in order for people to get vaccinated. So as you see, and they don't see eye to eye. This moon doesn't see Jupiter, and because it's like having someone right here, you don't see it. It's kind of behind, you know, and Jupiter don't see the moon either. So it's like they are not agreeing. Of course, there's nothing in common between the water and the air, except that they may make bubbles, or I mean, the water may be evaporated, but other than that, they don't mix well. They are separating entities. If you have bubbles in the water, they will escape as soon as they have a chance, right? If you open a soda, you will experience that. Yeah, so this moon and Jupiter don't agree. They don't see each other. They don't even are aware of each other. And again, the moon will be in the balsamic stage of closing the cycle with Jupiter, which is like, as I said, it's would be a dark moon for Jupiter. So this Jupiter that wants to be generous about healthcare and healing and blah blah blah, and going all over the world vaccinating people and giving compensation for it, doesn't even consider these people. The moon representing the people. Okay, so one of the things that I need to point out is also the axis of the nodes of the moon in the axis of Gemini and Sagittarius, as I mentioned before. And I have a blog post. I can put the post in the description below. It is about the mind, the lower mind or practical mind, and the higher mind or philosophical and more abstract conceptualization of the mind. So now the South Node in Sagittarius is we are represents that we are leaving behind certain beliefs that are not useful anymore. So we are changing those for more spiritual and more let's say more humanitarian, if you want, kind of beliefs and ideas and mores as well. And the North Node is looking eagerly for information. So the North Node is avid to get more and more information. And Gemini is an air sign, which means that we are also eager to socialize in one way or another, however we are able to, right? It's a sign of the relationship between us and the environment, between us and the neighbors, the siblings, and everyone that is around us in our lives. So there is this need, this eagerness to relate to the people around us. And it is the North Node is ruled by Mercury in Cancer, which is Mercury that is very caring, very nurturing. It is Mercury that is concerned with ideas of family and emotional well-being, right? And see, the moon is in Aquarius, as I described it below before. But the last, I think that will be the last item that I will talk about is that in this period of 7-8 years since 2018, we have had Chiron in the first natural house of the world chart. And Chiron in the first house is the threat to life itself and the threat to the initiation of life. And so the Aries is the first spark of life, right? And Chiron talks about the vulnerability. And if you think about Chiron and Aries the previous time, it was between 1968 and 1976. And I looked up, other than the nuclear threat at that time, if you remember, the Cold War was during those years, but there were other war threats that people were against. If you remember, those were the years of the Vietnam and Cambodia wars with the United States intervening there. But in the health realm, in the health sector or field, there was also the London flu and the smallpox outbreak in Yugoslavia, coming from Iran and Afghanistan. So there was this smallpox threat, and it was an epidemic outbreak, even though in Yugoslavia people had been vaccinated for many years, but they still got the smallpox. And what happens is that coming from Afghanistan, someone coming from Afghanistan introduced it, and it was probably a variant or something. So the London flu spread to the United States as well. There was the nuclear threat and the war threat. And also, if you remember, that Silent Spring, the book by Rachel Carson, was written in 1962. So those, the 60s, Chiron was in Pisces, and 68 entered Aries. And those years were when people started becoming aware of climate change, and climate change due to human behavior and human practices, like chemicals used in the environment for agriculture, etc. So at that time, the threat to life and the threat to identity was also in the movement of the civil rights movements in the United States, and possibly in other countries as well. So it was a strong emphasis on defending life. It was the time of Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and people, activists who defended the right to be who they were, right? The right to be Black, the right to be whatever, to practice a certain religion, the right to exist in general, because especially Black population had been so threatened along, history, and not only in the United States, right? And also indigenous peoples' rights, etc. So we see those themes are, we are now at the verge of the atomic threat as well, with the tension between United States and Iran, and we see this tension in the world in general, and the vulnerability of life itself, with the COVID-19 and who knows what else that might be coming. Now we have other variants like the Delta and the Lambda coming to Texas, right? So in other parts of the world as well. So we can we can say that these 7-8 years since 2018, we are experiencing very existential threat to the human life and in life in general, because if you see, there were populations of Minsk that were killed because they were affected by the COVID-19, and so much. There's so much. There's one thing after another. Now there are deluge floods, diluvial floods in northwest Europe, in China and India, and the threat of fire in the west of the United States, and high temperatures and drought. All the conditions that nature is showing that our life is at risk. And that comes, I think, mainly from Chiron in Aries, that we need to consider that our existence, it is very tied to the existence of the earth, and that we are one with this earth. It is the same energy that keeps the earth alive, that keeps us alive. If we consider that we are 70% or more of water in our bodies, then why do you imagine that those waters are enraged, right? People are enraged, and the water in the body is enraged, infused by that rage, that energy. And And so the waters everywhere are carrying that rage. So other things that happen is that people, so many people hate themselves and try to hurt themselves with the use of substances that hurt the body. I mean, I can't avoid talking about health and these existential problems, because I'm a Virgo rising. So I've been always very concerned about health issues. And I can't understand why people put substances in themselves to hurt themselves when all they want is to feel well, and feel the healthy, right? So and they behave contrary to what they really want and deep inside. So anyways, but of course, there are many reasons why people behave that way. I'm not going to question or put down those problems. Those problems are sometimes carried over by generations, and there are a lot of factors intervening on that. But what I need to say is that this is the point when either we turn our hearts to healthy behaviors and practices and ideas and thinking, or we perish. So either we change or we perish. This is the no return point. I think that scientists have been since Rachel Carson published Silent Spring, it has been in the immediate awareness of people that we need to change, and many have chosen not to change, and here we are with these problems that are making us vulnerable at the same time that threatening the existence of animals and plants. And I mean, where would we go if bees are extinct? Just think about it. So, and this is reflected by the square to Eris. Pluto Eris square is the last quarter square or the closing square. This is a long cycle, because Eris is the planet of rebellion and also human rights. Has a 550-year orbit. In Pluto, about half of it, 248. And they are in, the sun is opposing this also Pluto here. It's out of sign, but it is opposing. And we have Eris opposing Haumea, which represents the power of nature to rebuild and regenerate itself. So as you see, it is a chart that is screaming for people to understand that they need to do something in order to protect this earth and to survive, for life to survive. So the north node of the moon is looking for answers about this survival, right? Is looking for information here about how to survive. So I hope this gave you food for thought. I mean, this is a powerful chart that can invite you to action, right? And very, very stubborn or determined, you know, action, because it's a fixed fire, in order to do something, not just complain, okay, we are getting killed by water, by fire, by COVID. Let's do something about it. Let's find what you can do on your daily basis. For example, how is your consumption? Are you consuming junk and trash and food, for example, junk food? Are you putting the trash in its proper place? Very simple things that you can do every day, like saving water, for example, keeping water for emergencies, and also not wasting water when you shower, when you brush your teeth. So there are very simple ways to put your grain of salt. And it's not that the small actions will result in big, huge changes, but it is the energy and the impulse that you give, the love, the intentional motivation, the intention, the care that you give. It's not so much the small action, but the love that you put in it. This energy spreads out, and your example may be taken. You may be affecting with your positive and loving energy. You may be affecting everyone around you, and even the plants and the animals around you, right? So make sure that you pour your love, that you pour your good intentions into everything that you do in order to have a better life, to preserve life, and for us all to be able to survive. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this presentation inspires you and makes you feel good, right? In spite of any situation that you may be going through. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.